democracy. And here is perhaps the most important point that we want to explore all across this conference. Equality is not a gift to be bestowed on minorities. It is essential to democracy itself, and the struggle to achieve it is the project of the whole society, not just those who are working to achieve it. The whole society is diminished when racism prevails and minorities are segregated and victimized by discrimination. The evidence is overwhelming about this, that segregation and discrimination have a lasting negative impact not only on the victims, but on the majority of society whose prejudices are reinforced. Police violence against African Americans is a product of these prejudices. So is the segregation of Roma schools. The disproportionate incarceration of people of color in the U.S. is a product of these prejudices. So is the marginalization of Roma in European societies. The movements we will discuss here today are struggles for an inclusive democracy. We will look inside these struggles to share their experiences, their strategies, and their wisdom. And to do that, we have assembled an extraordinary group of participants on stage and in the audience from the American Civil Rights Movement and the European Roma Rights Crisis. The biographies, as Ellen said, of all the speakers are in the program, so we won't repeat them in our introductions in order to save time. So I'd now like to invite to the stage our first group of speakers, historian Taylor Branch. Taylor Branch will come first. Thank you very much. But I will also note that commenting on Taylor's speech and coming to the stage right after he's finished is producer and media commentator Callie Crossley and Jelko Jovanovich, our Open Society Foundation's partner in creating a conference, and Ellen will be the moderator of this panel and the following panel. So welcome again to this extraordinary and ambitious conference. And Taylor, please join me in welcoming Taylor Branch to the stage. Thank you, John. You probably don't know that John and I have been friends since the 1960s, so we go pretty far back, but this is the first time I've traveled this far to be with him. I'm glad to be here. I first want to salute all of you who are from or for or interested in the Roma movement here in Europe, because I'm hoping to learn from you. I want to talk to you about the history of the civil rights movement in the hopes that there might be some similarities and differences that will further your own struggle here and perhaps inform us as well, because our struggle is far from over. I want to try in the time I have here to give a sketch of a movement in the United States that is part of U.S. history from its very beginning, to get down to its essentials and how it worked, almost at a psychological level as well as a historical level, because I think that's where things really matter. Movements, we commonly tend to think of movements as something that we can capture in an idea that will label the movement in an intellectual sense, and that will command the reality on the ground. But the reality is that those labels seldom command anything, and the movements bubble up out of connections, out of emotions, and out of intellectual struggles that are beyond the labels that we use to analyze politics. The way I'll begin with that is to say that the civil rights movement grew out of lost history, that the history of African Americans in the United States was poorly preserved, if at all. Most American history texts from the 19th century onward introduced the subject of slavery primarily to talk about the ending of slavery, to say that it was ushered out and how it was ushered out. So how it got here and what it meant was slussed over, because it was an uncomfortable subject. It was uncomfortable right from the beginning, because our revolution and our American birth was self-consciously a birth in freedom, and even the dimmest wit recognized that slavery was somehow a contradiction to the freedom that was being proclaimed, and therefore in our founding documents in the United States, slavery is never mentioned, the word race is never mentioned, and yet some of the key compromises in the beginning of the American Revolution were over slavery. The famous Three-Fifths Compromise, in which the slaveholders in the South demanded that their slaves, who they considered property, like horses, for the purposes of representation, should be fully represented so that they would get to vote for them, even though the slaves themselves wouldn't get to vote. They would get that many more million. We imported 11 million slaves over the course of the colonial period. The Northerners refused that because it would grossly amplify the representation in our Congress of the slaveholding regions, and so they came up with a compromise that the slaves would count as 3/5 of a person for the proportion of representation, and the slaveholders would get to vote those 3/5 in the Congress. So the representation of the Southerners was amplified by the slaves, and that really fundamentally affected the early part of American U.S. history. And those compromises are in the Constitution, but the word slavery doesn't appear. It is produced by euphemism. Euphemism, writ large, going later, meant that anything pertaining to slavery was suppressed within the history. This shouldn't be surprising to any of you who are historians. All history is a contest between the outsiders and the insiders. The insiders write the history. They have the definitions and the labels. The outsiders are marginalized, and yet because they are outsiders, looking at the professions of the people who run things, they tend to have a better view of the insiders than the insiders have of themselves. In the United States, this is why we say that Jews and black people are our best artists and our comedians, because they have a view of the inner psyche of the dominant culture that the dominant culture itself does not have. We had that in the civil rights movement, because black people were completely outside the mainstream of life. When I was growing up in the South, in Atlanta, I was taught that the Civil War had nothing to do with slavery, that black people in the United States as slaves were much better off than they had been as savages in Africa, that this was the soothing history that we were taught, far removed from any history. Black people should start making a movement, given the fact that in that era, over 60% of black people in the South where I grew up were either maids or day laborers, who were essentially a caste system of servants. They had access to no traditional political tools to advance their interests. They didn't have any money. They didn't have an army. They didn't have a police force. They didn't control businesses. They had no way to mobilize public opinion. And yet, they figured out a way to mount a movement. Now, movement is a word that is often used but seldom analyzed. What is a movement? A movement is something, is a social process that begins when someone is moved in a private, almost silent way. It is an inspiration that grows. And how does it grow? It grows by the process of people taking risks, getting outside of themselves and encountering other people and taking a risk that what moved them and the questions that they're asking might be in common across the gaps of fear and separation that divide us. My friend Diane Nash, who's one of the unsung heroes, many unsung heroes of the civil rights movement, told me that looking back on her many years in the civil rights movement, from the beginning of the sit-ins, that the image that came to her of what it was like to be in a movement that stuck with her was that it was like her wedding day. In this sense, that on her wedding day, her knees were shaking. She knew she was taking a leap into the future, and she wasn't sure how it was going to work out, but she knew she was defining herself by taking a leap with another person. And she said, in the movement, when you're debating every night whether or not you're going to go to jail the next day or not, your knees are shaking, because you are taking a risk that defines not only you, but your view of the world. This is a psychological process. This is beyond your ideas of right and wrong and your definition of democracy. The movement people, the people who wanted to make this movement, starting in the late 1950s, had to overcome the fact that their own history was gone, that it was not recognized, that they had no traditional weapons. And as I say, to this day we are dealing in the United States with a fundamentally distorted history of this period, of all of racial history. I'll give you just one example. To this day, textbooks in the United States use the word redemption to describe the period following the Civil War. The Civil War amendments to the Constitution provided that black people should have equal citizenship, that slavery was abolished, and that they should have the right to vote. Those amendments were promptly discarded. It is a profound embarrassment that we discarded our own amendments when it conflicted with our prejudices on race relations. For a brief period, the former slaves did vote in the United States, but those regimes were overthrown by violence, by terrorism. That's when the Ku Klux Klan was introduced. But that period is called redemption because the historians, North and South, the white historians came together and said that black rule, or black voting, was incompatible with civilization, and that we had to restore white rule in a process called redemption, which was really terrorism, but they turned it upside down and made it a religious redemption, not just an acceptable word, but a religious word. That's still in textbooks to this day, and all we get from that period are words like scalawag and carpetbagger that express hostility about a function that is profoundly embarrassing in any accurate sense of history. The leaders of the Civil Rights Movement after the Second World War labored under that same weight, that the prevailing culture saw itself as innocent, saw itself as burdened by black people, not having committed crimes against black people, saw themselves as being benevolent toward black people. So you're talking about perceptions at a very deep level. And so what happened in the movement people was that they had to study the sense of what democracy requires down to its very roots, so that they could become leaders of democracy for the whole society, not just for themselves. It may strike you as an impossibly ambitious task, but that's what they decided to do. What is the essence of democracy? What are the levers within the professed beliefs of the dominant society that we can have access to make up for the fact that we lack all the traditional weapons of politics? And I'm just going to boil all this down to two propositions that I think are at the heart of what the movement was when it first started. I know you're aware of Rosa Parks and the bus boycott and the sit-ins and the freedom rides when young people started subjecting themselves in witness against the segregation and the racial hierarchy, the racial caste system in the United States in the late 50s and early 60s. They boiled it down to two things. Number one, that the essence of the American experiment in trying to form a just society is the proposition that people can be self-governing, that they can govern themselves, collectively and individually. And number two, and these work together, that the essence of citizenship is to build public trust. To use that self-governing system and to say that other people can be self-governing, to build a system of public trust through a compact of votes, which is really what it was. America was designed to become a cathedral of votes, in which things that were formerly decided by hierarchies and order and armies and the sword were decided by votes, not just the president, but within the Supreme Court and on the board of the CEU, you have votes. And all of this is a cathedral of interdependence that is built out of the conviction that we can be self-governing and that we can build public trust. Well, this is what young people came up with when they were struggling with how can we submit ourselves to confront the unconscious superiority that the dominant culture holds over black folks in the United States to keep them babes and sharecroppers. Well, we have to become more self-governing and more public trust. We have to exemplify that in a way that will shame people who claim to represent that. And the easiest way to understand the Great Leap, and this is leaping over many all-night arguments about how do we do this, what kind of army can we raise, is to show that people who subjected themselves in sit-ins and in the freedom rides, you don't know what the freedom rides were in 1961, it was illegal for black people and white people to ride on buses together. Literally, if you sat next to a black person, you were white on a bus, you were inviting the police to come and arrest you or the Klan to come and burn the bus, because black people were only supposed to sit in the back of the bus. And if you violated that, you were subject to arrest, violence, some sort of subjugation. Civil rights people sat on those buses and went into the South, having drilled themselves and practiced to say to anyone who got on the bus with a chain or a pistol or a weapon threatening to kill them, as they knew they would, you can kill me.